Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. You're part of this incredible venture that we're all excited to hear about, which is Black to the Future. So, first of all, Sarah, thank you.
You're welcome. So lovely to meet you.
You too. So, Black to the Future is an Afrofuturist celebration of outstanding Black artists, a space for visionary imaginings to thrive. And the BTTF, as its acronym stands, begins as a Black History Month, actually ends. So, it's actually at the end of Black History Month. So, launching late October and running until the US Black History Month, which is in February 2024. And then this will be accompanied by British Library's upcoming massive exhibition, The Fantasy Realms of Imagination, which is sort of at the same time as Halloween, if I'm not mistaken. So sort of around end of October, beginning of November. And then this has obviously been curated, founded, and directed by the wonderful Irenosen Okojie, who's just absolutely brilliant, and I've read so many of her works. And that's also in collaboration with the Royal Society of Literature and the British Library. And Sara Veal is the creative director of this incredible venture. So thank you so much for joining me to talk about this incredible thing.
Thank you. And there's a lot of words there, and you pulled them off brilliantly.
Oh, thank you. Oh God,
This is
I'm
what
gonna.
happens when writers put together an event at the British Library.
Oh yes, oh yes, for sure. So I've got to ask you. So, what is it about? Because obviously, we've got sort of this idea of Afrofuturism, but do you want to just explain to us like what it is?
Okay, so Irenosen actually brought the idea to me like in 2020,
Wow.
just before the pandemic.
Oh,
And yeah, she said that she really wanted to put on a festival about Afrofuturism, which is something that she is deeply interested in. She wanted to create something very expansive. She
hmm.
wanted to like bring different worlds together. And yeah, I mean, back then, like before the pandemic, we were like, okay, cool. I think we'll do this like at the end of this year, and we started working on it. Um, and then obviously everything changed and we kind of had to see how things panned out.
Hmm.
We kept kind of picking up, we kept trying to find the right time to do the project. And our lives changed quite a lot during that. She's been working on her next novel, which will be out next year.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. I changed industries. Like I went from when we met, I was head of communications at a co-working space for writers called Clean Prose.
Oh wow.
And we actually met because I created a launch for her book Nudibunk. So
Oh.
and we were really keen to find a way to work together again. Um Irenosen is like from Irenosen is like the expert on Afrofuturism. For me, it's been like a journey learning it, and I'm hoping that for those who are like deeply into the topic and those who are curious about it, they'll find lots to kind of invigorate them. We wanted to we wanted to bring together different industries, so not only literature but also cinema. We're very excited
Hmm.
because as part of the festival, we are basically putting on our first ever, both for both of us, our first ever film festival, which has been
Wow.
really exciting. Like we're never always just been like culture vultures, but this is our first chance of getting to kind of like talk to distributors, and
Cool.
Renison put together an amazing program. I I changed from kind of focusing on books to working in video games
Oh wow.
just after like a few months after we first started conversations back to the future. So I wanted to bring a lot of like video game stuff into it wherever possible. We think that really interesting things happen like if you get people from like different realms to like talk to each other. So a lot of our programming is kind of based around that. Our first event at the, our first kind of like have two first events. Back to the
Hmm.
Future style is like there'll be like two firsts and like two ends and like festivals within festivals.
Wow.
Kind of very Russian doll effect. But yeah, next our first event is a screening of Saul Williams' Afro punk sci-fi rom-com
Ooh.
musical Neptune Frost.
Wow.
and we're bringing together photographer David Kwamensa and Liz Cheje to introduce it, talk about Afro utopias. And then the event after that is our flagship event with the British Library, Genre Marauders. And we've got
Mm.
authors Tade Thompson, Shala Ramanan, River Solomon, and then chaired by Irenosen,
Wow.
um, talking about genre writing for like books and games. And we kind of wanted to kind of get across the sense of like invading spaces, like
Yeah.
as being creatives of color, um, so many acts of creativity kind of it's a challenge. It kind of um it takes a lot to get there. And
Yeah.
we thought it was quite powerful for our events to just put creatives of color front and center. So while the event is Black to the Future and the focus on Black excellence, we also have a very intersectional approach to that, where
Mm.
we're also highlighting other creatives of color. So and kind of applies to me. Like I'm half Filipino and half
Oh.
English. Um,
All right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of been part of like the joy of like working on it together is that like Irenosen and I have like kind of like crossover interests in
Mm.
certain things, but then we're just kind of bringing a lot of new stuff. Like I open her up to like tech and video game stuff. I
Mm.
speak that language a bit more, and she opens. I mean, her taste is impeccable. Like she has the best nose for like what is about to be like on everyone's lip. Like as part of our program, we're hosting a premiere for Mami Wata
Mm.
by director CJ Fiery Obasi. And just the other day, it was put forward as Nigeria's nomination for best film at the Oscars. And there's a
Oh
lot of
my
buzz about it.
God.
But yeah, like she'd already crossed paths with CJ like some years ago.
Mm.
She's I think, like, if a Renison thinks something is cool or interesting and you haven't heard of it yet, then it's probably, like, everyone's gonna hear about it. But we with our program, we kinda wanted to put, like, really well-known names and, like, rising stars together alike.
Mm. Yeah.
So, we've got, uh, to at the sort of close of our festival, we'll have N.K. Jemisin and
Oh,
Victor Laval
of
doing events at the
course.
British Library. Um, but yeah, wherever possible, we're also platforming kind of um, names that you might not be familiar with, but who are like absolute legends in their fields.
I'm excited to hear that because I just love the idea of it as well. And so, for the audience who may not know much about Afrofuturism, can you explain a bit about the concept of it?
Okay, um, so Afrofuturism, think like Black Panther.
Mm.
That's a particular vision of Afrofuturism. That's very positive. That's a very positive portrayal. I mean, so many sci-fi is often very, like, white, There's often a
Yeah.
very white, sort
Mm-hmm.
of, kind of particular vision of the future,
Yeah.
and it comes through a very white lens. Afrofuturism, flips that. It kind of it imagines, you know, imagines future through a black lens, but, usually with a very, like, kind of, like, positive outlook.
Mm.
Usually involving alternate histories. Like, for example, at the flagship event after Genre Marauders, we have Drexian Realms, which is a night of electronic music,
Oh,
dance,
so
art,
cool.
fantasy, and it's like a tribute to electronic music duo Drexia,
Hmm.
who created the myth of Drexia, same name as them, and it's about the slave ships going over to America and
Whoa.
a world where women um, jumped over and then they founded an underwater utopia. So like
God.
black mermaids. It's about seeing. I mean, it focuses on like I guess like the future as you wish it to be.
Hmm.
you know, as a person of color.
Hmm.
Involves technology, and it's explored like through, which is what makes it quite perfect for a festival. It's been explored through music, comic, film.
Hmm. Yeah, and I was, you know, it's a perfect segue because I was exactly going to ask that. But like, do you think like this festival came about because of the need for it in terms of the fact that that science fiction and fantasy has always been a very wide sphere?
Maybe. I mean, I think um, it was something Arenison wanted to explore. She sort of describes herself as an Afronaut. I
I like
I
that.
never I never kind of tuned into like whether or not like Afrofuturism was a trendy thing, but I've been picking up as we've been working on this that it's been like a growing conversation,
Hmm.
that like it's there's more and more explanations of it, like more and more kind of high profile explorations of it. Um, for Renison, she wanted to create a space that felt like less limited, that felt like it could go anywhere.
Hmm.
And that was unexpected, you know, like kind of like reverse tokenism. Like instead of making a small space for like a topic like this, or for like the people who speak to this, it's like give them the whole space
Yeah.
and see what they do with it and be open to what that could look like. So it's been very like dynamic. We didn't quite Renaissance, it starts with like what our Renaissance ideas are for like the content, and then like our process is usually to like work together and kind of be like, oh, okay, it could look like this, and she's like, maybe you could add this in, you know, could
Hmm.
you put together like a tech event for this, or do you have a suggestion for this? But it's also grown because of, as we've brought people on to work with us, they've made their own suggestions. You
Hmm.
know, they've kind of, our collaborators, the people we programmed, have made their own suggestions that have kind of led the direction of how it's gone. And I think that's what's quite possibly different about this festival, is that
Hmm.
it's we're not, Renaissance has a very clear vision of what she wants to do. She's got great instincts, but we're also very open to
Hmm.
seeing where it goes, and really appreciate all the ways in which everyone we spoke, it's been an amazing filter for people.
Hmm.
Like I have to say, like everyone we have met on this project, like it's been amazing to meet them.
Hmm.
We've discovered the venues that we're working with, the programmers and the culture teams for those venues. Like, yeah, they know, you know, they bring so much. I've, as a topic, it's
Yeah.
one that really opens us up to meeting brilliant people and new ideas.
That sounds awesome, and I'm really excited about it. And actually, I was just wondering, in terms of outside of the people within, you know, who are involved, and all the people, the venues that you've been in touch with, and the programmers, what has the response been like then?
Um, we've been very. I mean, we expected like a good response because
Mm.
this is a project we feel very passionately about, um and Renaissance amazing. She wouldn't put it like that, but I'll put it like that. But I mean, even the response we've had has kind of been beyond what we've expected. Um, we we didn't quite know what would happen when we made like the initial announcement,
Mm.
but even before we made the announcement, talking about what we wanted to do, kind of, and the way people responded to that. So this is how we actually ended up um, working with the British Library.
Mm.
We at the point at which we began working with the British Library, we had like a draft of a program, and we were trying to figure out the best venue for it and like how
Mm.
to make it happen. And our partner, the Royal Society of Literature, put our program forward to the British Library,
Oh,
and they wanted to do it along with their, they wanted it to be part of the events program for their fantasy exhibition.
cool.
And the thing is, our events were not just like, did have fantasy elements,
Mm.
but they weren't just fantasy. So when
No.
that happened, we were like, okay. we still want to do some of the other parts of it. So like, how can we, and the British Library, yeah, will be the hub. You can do offsite events. Like, we have to focus on the fantasy genre. I have learned a lot about genre. I'm like, is this fantasy? And they're like, no, it's magical realism. Is this fantasy? No, I'm like, no, that's science fiction. Like, science fiction is not fantasy. So I've had to keep looking up, because they're very like on track
Distinct.
with like
Yeah.
celebrating the fantasy genre. Um, I think both like, Irenosen writes surrealist literature.
Mm.
So it's like, how many how many shades of like kind of like imaginary and fantastical and like unreal are there? And I've really been discovering that. But yeah, in response to the British Library sort of housing the fantasy parts of our program, we went and found other homes for the other parts, like,
Hmm.
and the standard hotel. um our third collaborator, Elliot Jack, who runs Book Slam,
Mhm.
he recommended. I was like, oh, I was trying. He was the one who said, you should work with a venue that's like walking distance from the British Library, so that people can kind of go to the exhibition and then kind of walk around, on.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, what's in the area? And he had a list, and then he was the one who recommended the Standard Hotel, which is only a few
Oh.
minutes away from the British Library. And as soon as I walked in, I I actually walked in, and then I had to like walk back, like,
Hmm.
because the it's like it's very retro futuristic in there.
Hmm.
It's like a vision of the future from the 1970s, basically. And I was
Interesting.
like, this is perfect. I kind of couldn't believe how perfect it was. I ended up staying there for hours, and then like texting Renison and being like, I was talking. I ended up getting an impromptu tour from someone on the culture team, and then I was there for like 5 hours, and I was just texting Renison like, "Oh, look at the changing colors like across St. Pancras from this window." And then I said, "You will love this venue as soon as you walk into it." Yeah, like, the way that people have responded and supported it has been amazing, because we haven't started from like a place of like having like a pot of money or
No.
like backing. It's all been about like different partnerships, and uh people have been really thoughtful in what they've offered. The RSL has worked with us. Well, I mean, they they led us to the British Library, and they're partnering specifically on those events. The British Library gave us space,
Hmm.
and they helped us get N.K. Jemisin and
Hmm.
and Victor Laval, and the Standard has also offered space.
Hmm.
Uh, the Garden Cinema, like, the programmer there, like, has made suggestions when films are coming out, like, "Oh, like, this just came out. What do you think about this for your program?"
That's
The
cool.
It's been made up of. It started with Irenison and her ideas, then talking to me, but as it's grown, it has, like, kind of been gifted lots of contributions and support from people, behind the scenes.
Hmm.
And, we're really excited about the point at which we get to meet, like, the audiences for it too at
Right.
the events.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also curious to see, who's going to be there. I'm sure like a huge swathe of like different communities are going to be interested in this, especially given it's like sci-fi, fantasy genre, and the Afrofuturism side. So that's quite interesting. So, what do you hope to achieve with this project?
Well, we hope to we hope that what we hope to achieve is we put on a program that we're truly proud of,
Hmm.
where, like, you're in the room, you're really, like, in the moment, you remember that, and that's
Hmm.
a feeling, when you go to a great event,
Yeah.
like, you feel really there, like, you might not even look at your phone. Maybe just a little, because it's very addictive. But, you really feel there, you're glad to be there, you hear things that make you think of things you hadn't thought about, you feel inspired, you
Hmm.
meet you strike up conversations with people you haven't met before, you feel
Hmm.
comfortable coming by yourself, Um, we hope that in this first iteration, which runs from October 24th to the end of February. We hope that we our aim is to put on a display of kind of like the breadth of like Black excellence across different industries,
Hmm.
um, and to create new connections between the people that we put together for particular events, but also the people who come to them. Um, we're also making sure that wherever possible, we create a recording of the event.
Hmm. Cool.
So in some cases, like for the Genre Murders event, that's like it's a ticket, it's ticketed, so you can access it online. But for some of the other events, we're working with the venues to make a recording in some way because we want it to be documented
Hmm.
and something to look back on as well. We can, it's the breadth of it is immense. We know that we can't do everything, but we want to capture like a real diversity
Hmm.
of people and topics. Um, and we also want to make it so that it can happen again.
Hmm.
So we're doing what we can to work sustainably. It can be hard because when you work on something that really excites you, you can get carried away. I could easily we could easily just keep programming, you know, like and maybe never stop. But yeah, we're aiming to put together something that works well individually because
Hmm.
basically our festival is almost like a deconstruct. It was meant to be 2 to 3 days, one venue. Now it's three venues over. I'm like October, November,
Hmm.
December, over 5 months, and yeah, we we hope that it encourages people to go to places and see them in a new light, like say the British Library, go to places that maybe they didn't like necessarily think about going to.
Yeah.
We want to celebrate kind of um, the old and the new at once.
Definitely. I think it's all about you're right. The genres, like it's funny, sci-fi, future and historical fiction seem to be like the biggest genres right now that everyone seems to be interested in. So it's really interesting that this has come about at the same time as all this sort of discussion around time and where we exist within time. So I've got to ask, like, where can we find you? So where can we find out more information as we round this off?
So the best place is to start with our website, www.blacktothefuture.space. Um, if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll be the first to know about things before we even listed them. Also, we're at BTTF space on Twitter, or no, sorry, X. Although, like,
Formerly known as Twitter.
yes, uh, we're at BTTF space on most things. I'm just gonna double check, and on Instagram, it's BTTF underscore space because somebody already stole BTTF
That's
space.
strange. It's quite a unique name. That's
I know. I said, how did
unusual.
they do that? Did they just do that as soon as I did the X one?
Oh,
But yeah,
cheeky.
so look out for BTTF space.
Amazing. Well, again, Sarah, I can't thank you enough for speaking about this amazing, amazing adventure. I'm so, so, so excited to watch it in person. So definitely,
Yeah,
I'll
we're
be
excited to
covering
see
it. I'll be covering this event. So yes, and I hope others will join me at this event too because it sounds absolutely fabulous.
yeah, no, it'd be great to see you. And yeah, we're looking forward to meeting our audiences.